Hello, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of A to Z English Podcast, where we help you elevate your English skills in practical and enjoyable ways. I'm John, and today we've got a packed episode for you. Advanced techniques to push your language learning further. We're going to dive deep into strategies that not only sharpen your fluency, but also improve your vocabulary, pronunciation, and real-life usage.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, and I'm really looking forward to today's discussion. If you've been following along, you know we've covered the basics in past episodes, but now it's time to step up your game and dig into advanced language strategies. We're going to help you break through plateaus and give you tools to make learning not just effective, but enjoyable. So grab your notebook because there's a lot to cover today.
Exactly. Today's episode is especially for those who are ready to take their learning to the next level. Whether you're aiming to speak more confidently or you want to expand your knowledge of English in specific areas like business or travel. Let's jump right in. 1. Immersive practice, a game changer for language learners. Let's kick things off by talking about immersion. This is one of the most powerful ways to accelerate your language learning. When we talk about immersion, we don't just mean visiting an English-speaking country, although that's great if you can. We mean creating an environment where you're constantly exposed to English in your daily life.
Exactly, John. You don't need to travel to be immersed in English. You can bring the language into your own space. It's about making English a part of your routine, like watching English language shows without subtitles or listening to English music and trying to understand the lyrics. The more you expose yourself to the language, the more familiar it becomes. But there's a trick to making this more effective.
Yes, and that's being an active listener. Don't just listen passively. When you watch a TV show or a YouTube video in English, pause occasionally and repeat what you hear. Try to mimic not just the words, but also the intonation, rhythm, and even the emotions behind the phrases. This helps you internalize the language at a deeper level.
Right. And if you're a fan of audiobooks or podcasts, those can be fantastic tools. Choose topics that genuinely interest you, whether it's history, science fiction, or self-development. Listen while you're commuting, exercising, or cooking. But here's the key. Actively engage. Pause, rewind, and repeat. And try to predict what the speaker might say next. This keeps your brain actively processing the language instead of just letting it wash over you.
Immersion also extends to reading. Start by reading simple English blogs or news articles and work your way up to more complex materials. For advanced learners, it's time to tackle novels, especially ones filled with dialogue. That's where you'll pick up conversational language, slang, and idiomatic expressions that textbooks won't teach you. 2. Advanced pronunciation, sounding more natural. Now, let's get into pronunciation, which is crucial but often overlooked by advanced learners. You might know the words, but if you can't pronounce them well, it might be hard to get your point across.
Definitely, and pronunciation is more than just saying the words correctly, it's about sounding natural. A common challenge is tackling sounds that don't exist in your native language. For instance, in English, sounds like theth, as in this or think, can be tricky for many learners.
That's right, Sarah. If you're struggling with certain sounds, try breaking them down. Focus on how your mouth moves when you say these sounds. YouTube has great tutorials on this, and apps like Forvo or even Youglish are perfect for hearing words pronounced by native speakers. Another great method is to record yourself speaking and then compare it with a native speaker. It's tough at first, but it's an eye-opener for areas you can improve.
Exactly, and don't forget intonation. English is a stress-timed language, meaning we emphasize certain words or syllables. Mastering the rhythm of English can make a big difference in how natural you sound. Try listening closely to how native speakers' voices rise and fall. Pay attention to stress patterns and see if you can replicate them.
A fun way to practice this is by using tongue twisters or poems. These challenge both your pronunciation and intonation. For instance, repeating a line like, She sells seashells by the seashore can help improve your S and esh sounds while making your speech flow more naturally.
3. Expanding your vocabulary beyond the basics. Now, let's move on to vocabulary. Building a broad vocabulary is essential, especially at an advanced level. But here's where it gets interesting. You don't want to just memorize lists of random words. You want to learn vocabulary in context.
That's such a good point, Sarah. Learning words in isolation isn't enough. You need to know how to use them in real conversations. For example, if you're learning the word accomplish, don't just memorize its meaning. Learn the phrases it typically appears in, like accomplish a goal or accomplish a task. This is called learning collocations, words that naturally go together.
Exactly. One of the best ways to do this is through reading. Fiction books, news articles, or even blogs can introduce you to new words in their natural context. When you see how words are used in sentences, it sticks better in your memory. Make a habit of underlining new words or phrases and writing them down in a notebook. Then, try to use them in sentences of your own.
And don't forget about spaced repetition systems, or SRS. Apps like Anki allow you to create flashcards, and they'll automatically remind you to review words at optimal intervals. This method helps move vocabulary from your short-term memory to your long-term memory.
Another great technique is theming your vocabulary study. If you're interested in technology, for example, focus on learning words and phrases related to that field. Or if you're working in a business environment, make sure you're familiar with business terms and jargon. When your vocabulary is tied to a subject you care about, you're more likely to retain it.
4. Real-life conversations, where learning comes alive. The techniques we've discussed, immersion, pronunciation, vocabulary, they all come together in real-life practice. There's nothing better than having actual conversations in English to reinforce what you've learned.
Yes, and one of the most effective ways to do this is through language exchange platforms like Tandem, HelloTalk, or even finding a language partner in your community. These exchanges are usually low pressure, and you can help each other by speaking in both of your native languages. You'll not only improve your speaking skills, but also learn cultural nuances that aren't taught in textbooks.
And don't forget the power of social media. Joining English-speaking forums or online communities based on your interests can be incredibly helpful. Whether you're into gaming, photography, or cooking, there are spaces where people discuss these topics in English. Engaging in conversations you're passionate about helps the language feel more relevant to your life.
Another great resource is joining virtual English discussion groups or classes. Many language schools offer online sessions where you can engage with other learners from around the world. The more you speak, the more confident you'll become.
One final tip for real-life practice: try role-playing scenarios that might come up in your daily life. If you're preparing for a job interview, for example, practice answering common interview questions in English. This way, you'll be ready when the real situation arises.
5. Staying motivated, overcoming plateaus. Let's be real, learning a language can be frustrating at times, especially when you feel like you're not making progress. Hitting a plateau is normal, but it's important to stay motivated and push through.
Absolutely. One way to stay motivated is by setting small, achievable goals. For example, aim to learn 10 new words per week, or challenge yourself to speak English for 10 minutes every day. These small wins add up, and before you know it, you'll see noticeable progress.
I completely agree. Another great strategy is gamifying your learning. Language apps like Duolingo or Memrise use game mechanics to keep you engaged. They give you points for completing exercises and staying consistent. It's a fun way to challenge yourself while tracking your progress.
And remember, it's okay to take breaks and reflect on how far you've come. Language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. Celebrate the small victories along the way, whether it's finishing a book in English or successfully holding a conversation with a native speaker. These moments matter.
Absolutely, John. The journey of language learning is full of ups and downs, but persistence is the key. Stay curious, keep practicing, and most importantly, enjoy the process.
Conclusion. Well, that wraps up today's episode. We hope these advanced techniques help you break through any language plateaus and take your English skills to the next level.
Yes, keep pushing yourself, stay motivated, and remember, it's all about progress, not perfection.
Thanks for tuning in to the A to Z English podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep learning and enjoy the journey.